Okay, welcome back. Today we will program the settings view and we will get in touch with the CoreData model with our entity. And basically we will program these sections, and then in the next videos we will continue to program these views. Okay, but as you can see here, like these are basically H stacks here in a section, and all of them have the same format. So first we will actually program a template which you can then use many times over, exactly 3 times, and simply can call it. But a good rule is simply like if something in your code repeats at least 2 times, maybe make a function out of it, especially if there's a possibility that it will repeat or that you will use this kind of code more than 2 times in the future. And if something actually happens at least 3 times, then you should definitely program it. Okay, sometimes you can deviate from that, but I recommend to you that you get really into the habit of using the possibilities that Xcode offers you to actually, for example, program structs or whatever that you use then many times over again, and get used to using structs that you program in one file in another file. So first we will program the kind of simple struct here, form rolling view. A form rolling view will be one H stack. Okay, let's get started. So first we'll structure this, then we call this properties, and then we go for a few vars, so variables, and then we always define a variable and then a type. So after the double point always comes the type, so string, then var color is the type of color, var text as the type string, and var link as the type string as well. Okay, now follows the body. Okay, and in here we will first delete the text, and you should pay attention to like when are you changing what. Maybe like the first tutorials were a bit confusing, but for example you can always click somewhere and see where it ends. So for example, everything that when you click here, for example, you can see everything that's beneath, not beneath, but in between these brackets will define the view. So the variable body, which is the type of some view. Okay, and also you can, for example, click here and can see that everything that is in between the brackets is part of the form rolling view. And this is especially important if you, for example, modify something like here, point and go for whatever. Then these modifications will apply to everything that is in between these brackets. So this will actually modify this section of code. Okay, so this was important to mention in case you didn't know. Now you know, and this knowledge should help you to actually understand more quickly when you see more complicated tutorials how something is structured, and I believe that I try to make it simple for you to understand where we modify what. Okay, so here we will delete the text and go for an H stack. We follow up with an open bracket and click enter. See, so I try to make it very simple for you always, so you can directly see the structure, but I would also do it for myself. So here we say text, so here we are calling the variable we define first, the text. Okay, then we go with the spacer, then we go with the button, open brackets, action, double point, open brackets. Then we go for open a link as a comment, guard, let URL equals URL, open brackets, string double point self dot link, comma, UI application point shared point can open URL else open brackets, then we click return, then beneath we go for UI application dot shared dot open URL as URL. Go for this. No. Whatever, we will first do this. So here we go for image, system name, here we go for icon, dot image scale. So we are actually modifying the image now. So image scale is large and foreground color will be color. Okay. Then we could go for this, which implies that if you go for here, that this is everything that is in between the H stack. Okay, and here we don't go for dot color, but color, so we use this variable. Then maybe we will now be able to, okay, whatever. Oh, here it is wrong. Okay, now it looks fine. So what happens here? We go for an H stack. So as mentioned before, an H stack simply is kind of object that aligns from left to right. So as you can see here, then from left to right we say text text. So we actually give over something for the text, which is first a variable. So we give something to this object as a text, to the struct as a text, and this will be filled in. So for example, in this example, it would be how to use this at best. Then we have a spacer. A spacer basically ensures that one thing is on the left side and one thing is on the right side if you just have 3 elements. So on the right side, you actually have a button. These are all buttons. Okay, and then we actually apply the logic that we can actually call a URL, and the URL will be the variable link. This is what this part ensures. And then we close the logic and simply go for the appearance of the button. And the appearance of the button will be an image. Here, it's an image. And the system name of the image will be icon, because in the last video you also saw that actually the icons can be called with strings. We simply switch over to the content view where we already showed that. These here, the icons, are simply strings, part of the SF symbols, which you can see here. This icon is simply called with this string. Okay, so getting back to the form row link view now. And something is missing, because here you can see missing arguments for the preview. Why does it call missing arguments? Well, you just made lots of variables, but you have to give it a default value to each variable, so something can be displayed in the preview. So when you click to canvas, something could be displayed here if we would choose default values for these variables. So we click on here and we can simply click on fix. And now we have this selection. So we will go for play.fill for icon. For color, we will choose pink, because why not? For text, we will choose video tutorial. And for link, we will go for wikipedia.com. Okay, and now we should click resume. Okay, as you can see here, this HTag was just created. You can see this has the color pink, and we have here a button and here a text and then a big space in between. And you can also see that there's like no padding on the left or on the right side. And this is not a problem as long as you actually use this struct inside of another struct that has a padding to the left and to the right side. Okay, so don't get confused with this kind of visuals. It will become much clearer soon. But we could also go for something to change the looks of this preview. We go for preview layout, .fixed, then we go for width 375, height will be 60, not 69, but 60, and then we go for padding, and here you can see quite nice, and this is actually like a pretty cool review, I would say. And this is, I believe, a pretty cool preview and a cool element which we can then therefore use in other objects and structs. Okay, so let's quickly switch to the settings view, and there you will then see an example of why this is actually quite cool that we have now this and can call this. Okay, so first of all, when we go back to the simulator, we can see that here we are doing something with CoreData. So what do we need if we actually do something with CoreData? Well, we discussed before that if we want to interact with the items that were stored into CoreData, that we actually always need to use the fetch data section, which is in the content view. So what we simply do, we are lazy, we go for this part and press Command plus Z. Then we go to settings view. Then we go under view, press Command and V. Okay, and that's pretty much it. So now we have the core data items integrated and can interact with them. So here we will simply comment something, and then we go for a private func. And here we will actually program something that allows you to only delete the progress items that are stored within CoreData. So the items which are actually mains, so that declare a new topic, will remain, but all the items that are not main, but simply have something for progress, will be deleted. I thought this might be quite a cool feature, because otherwise you might need to deinstall and reinstall an application, but this way you can simply use this function and then the store should be emptied automatically. Okay, so items, then we go for these weird brackets. Just a moment. No. Okay. You have to click Option +5, so this bracket appears. Then we go for $sign. $sign always indicates a selector. 0, then .topic. exclamation mark, close bracket, dot joined, open brackets, close brackets, for index dot comma item, close brackets, in items dot enumerated, open bracket. No, this was not supposed to happen. Then here we go for if items, then the rear brackets, you have to click Option and 5, index, Option and 6, so you can close the bracket, dot main is identical to false. Then if items, open rear brackets, close them again, dot topic equals Thema. It's a German word for topic. Sometimes I use simply the same words in different languages because it makes sometimes stuff simpler. Offsets dot map, open brackets, then some underline in item. Okay, then for each view context dot delete. Okay, so this is basically an if. Then here we have for loop. Then we have to add here a close bracket. Then the errors will disappear, and beneath the for loop we actually have to make save items. Okay, save items will make sense soon because we will program another function. So this is also interesting about Xcode. You can actually simply call functions even though you don't, for example in Python, you would have to first declare a function and then beneath it you could call it. And in Xcode it doesn't matter where you declare the functions, you can call them even in previous functions. Okay. So first we will program the save items function, because this is how you actually call a function. Open brackets, close bracket after the function, and it will get executed. Okay. Private function save items, open brackets, do, open brackets, try view context dot save. So, and then here catch, open brackets, enter, then that ns error equals error s and s error, enter. And this is now wrong. Spelling is important with these things. Okay, fatal error. Unresolved error. Then we go for this weird slash, so Option Shift +7. Okay, open brackets, ns error. Then behind the close brackets a comma, and then weird slash again. And then we go for ns error dot user info, and then between these brackets we go for this and delete this here, and this should look good. So if these things don't say a lot to you, like these things, then I recommend to you the following thing. You simply create a new application in Xcode and simply choose the option to use CoreData. Then you will see that actually this part is nothing else than actually renaming things that Xcode usually does within other functions that iterate through elements of CoreData. We simply gave it a name and made it a function for stuff Xcode usually does whenever you call a specific function to make it simpler. So whenever we interact with CoreData, we can simply use this func whenever these things are needed. And what this thing does is, as the name implies, it actually saves the changes to view context, so to the CoreData model. Okay, and what does this do? So first, we declare a constant and say that we have let thema. So thema will actually be the topic of the selected item. So items, and then I said this is always a selector, like the $sign. And then we go for the topic. And so the thema is nothing else than the topic of the selected item at the current moment. But then, actually, we will iterate over the items. And then we go for, like this is a for loop, and enumerated is nothing else than a specific for loop. Okay, so we go for index items, for index item in items enumerated. Okay, so if items index.main, so we look for items where the main is false. So remember, here we are creating items that have a main, so they're actually a new category, and what we type in is a topic. That's what we said. And here, when we add progress, the items which we will add have a predefined topic. The predefined topic will what is displayed here. So they are in the same category. They have progress. The item that we add here has no progress, but therefore an ideal. And then these items have no ideal, but as I said, just progress. They have a topic, but no main. So we actually want to delete the past progress of every item with this topic, except this item. We only want to have this item that has a main and a topic in the selection, but only want to delete the progress. Okay, so we're iterating over the items where the main is false, when the main is false, and if the items with the current index, so we simply iterating over the items, we go from 0 to n, so 0, 1, 2, and so on. This is how it's counted. Topic equals the thema, so the current selection. Then we delete the item. That's it. How did I figure it out? Like how to program this? Lots of trial and error. How to modify it till it really worked. Okay, but I wanted to make this little change. So, of course, if you want to try to modify it on your own, you can do, but I recommend just use this whenever you need to accomplish this little trick. And for example, this would definitely work with other things as well. So you could select any kind of variation for an attribute. It doesn't have to be the topic. You could also do it for other things in slightly different ways, but now you know how it works. Okay, so this is the first advanced thing I would say. Except, of course, the cool modifications we used from the tutorial from Kafsoft, but this is the first advanced thing that you see that I made. Okay, then we go for this view and we go for an VStack, which we'll implement. Open brackets, close brackets, and then we put an HStack in there, open brackets, close brackets, and this HStack will be modified now. So we'll give it the alignment center, so alignment is simply where it's aligned, and we go for the center. Then in here we go for an image, and we call this. Okay, then we added here the image settings neu that we called, again, some German stuff. And then we can see that is something that we added here. So simply an image, and it has some, here it has the image size of 150 times 79. I recommend this kind of format, and it should be the headline. Here, that's what we're adding now. Okay, so we will go back to the settings view. So we will first program a few things, and then you can copy the code. So we go for modification resizable, then scaled to fit, then frame max width 130, padding. Okay, then here is where the H stack ends. And as said before, now we can modify the H stack, and we go for padding and do a horizontal padding. And then we press comma, and then we modify how much the padding will be, and we go for 90. Okay, then beneath this we go for a form, open brackets, close brackets, and now is the time that you should copy this code. So, happy coding. So, now I believe you are done with coding and copying the code. So we will structure the form first. We go for, let's say, 4 sections. So, section 1. Then I will go for section. Then we go for section 2. This should be quite self-explanatory. After we've done this, we will modify everything, of course. Section 3, section no, something wrong. Okay, then we go for section 4. Okay, and now we will modify each section. So a form is basically a previously implemented layout, like for all these things. So one section is always like this, and when you implement sections in a form, it simply has a predefined layout, but it looks quite neat, don't you think? I think it's great. Especially, I believe it's quite useful for the settings view. Okay, so first we will modify this. So section starts with a header, text. So we will call this additional information. And then we will make it complicated, and after this we will make it easier. So let's see. We will go for an H stack. Make sure that you don't code along, but really when I'm coding, simply try to follow me, and after I'm done coding, you should copy the code, otherwise you will have to work more than is needed, and you should be more focused on listening to myself and maybe double the speed while I'm explaining. And after that, take your time and code. This is a warning with meaning, because now you would code something which we will delete later. Okay, so we will go for an H stack. Then we go for text. Leave this empty first, go for spacer, go for button. Then we go for, didn't want to do this. Okay, and then we go for action. Got let URL equals URL string double point self.link, comma UI application dot shared dot can open URL URL else open brackets, enter. Then we go for return. Okay. Then we will correct the format so it looks better than it does now. Then beneath return we click enter and go for UI application dot shared dot open brackets URL as URL. Now we go for styling and go for image system name double point icon dot image scale dot large dot foreground color, and this we will leave empty. Okay, so this was our H stack, and now we will do something else. We will go for form row link view. Then we go for icon. Directly simply click enter and everything will be automatically generated with the variables we picked. So go for play rectangle. Then we go for, I don't know, color.red, text, how to use this at best, and go for an empty link or wikipedia.com, who knows. So then we go back here and go for this icon will be this. Then we go for text. Put this in here. And then, okay, so this should be fine now. And then we go for canvas, click on resume. So quite interesting, isn't it? So first, here we made all this stuff manually, and if you actually paid a lot of attention, then you already know that this, like this here, is nothing else than what we actually programmed here. That's it. This is the same format, except that we actually use variables here, which we can then later on fill in. So you can actually, depending on how many variables make sense, you can go for more things that always repeat themselves or whatever. Or less. Okay, and then I wanted to show that we can actually replicate all of this with this. Very simple. So this is why you should program efficiently and quite smart. And as promised, we will simply delete this because we don't need it. But as you can see, programming this thing 4 times would open many possibilities for errors and wouldn't be beneficial at all. Simply program it once, use variables, as many as you need, to modify it to your needs, and then you're good to go. So delete. Okay, and then we will add another form rolling view, like this. We will go back to show editors only, then we click here on fix, and then we will copy this another time because we will need this another time as well. Okay, so we go here for play.tv. Here we go for $sign.circle. Color will be here, color.purple. Here it is color.blue. Text here is how to program this app. Okay, and here is support my work for future content. And then we simply use this link many times over. Okay. Okay, let's move on. Section 2. So the second section will also start with a header. So we quickly go for that. Header, double point, text about this app. Okay, so in between we go for an H tag, open brackets, enter, text, compatibility, then we go for spacer, so left to right, left element in the middle, then here comes the right element, text, iPhone, iPad, so we declare that you can actually use this application on an iPhone and on an iPad, but not on a MacBook, because I don't believe it would work. Maybe this is something for another tutorial where I show you how you could implement compatibility, but then you are limited to all the elements which are compatible with the MacBook and maybe not the fun stuff I want to use for recent Xcode versions. So here, like in the About section, we simply say what this app version is about. Usually users are interested in stuff like this. And could also say who is it from and so on and whatever you like. Okay, something, as I said, like often when there's a slight mistake, these things will go out of line. Okay, so this looks fine. Then section 3 will also start missing argument. Okay, here, that's a mistake. You should be careful with these things. This should disappear soon. Okay, then we go for header, text, then as text we use copyright, then we go for text, copyright, and then the C. I have to admit that I copied this thing from the internet because I have no idea how you can actually make this one on a normal keyboard. Okay, then we go for font type. So these are always font types, and footnote is a small font type. So foreground color. So primary and secondary, and the ones following, I believe there's another one, tertiary or something, are simply implemented into Xcode, which you can always use. So you can also go for this. Okay. And then we go for the fourth section, header, text. And here we go for delete your past progress of habits. habits if the app becomes slow. So directly explaining why this might be useful, because there's a possibility that there will exist too many CoreData items which the application has to load, but this is really forward thinking what I did here, but nothing that is totally special. So I believe many people would come to this conclusion if they would think about why this actually could make sense. Okay, then we go for each. So iterating through something, open brackets enter, item in. So if item dot main equals true, then text item dot topic double question mark empty. So if the topic is empty, font dot system dot footnote design double point dot rounded dot animation dot default. Here's something with an if condition. Then here we have something with for, there we go for this, capital letters, why not? So here you can see for each, if condition. Then we go here, so for this for each loop, then on delete, perform delete progress item. So we can go for this. We don't need this offset stuff because this is automatically given that this happens. So section, then we go here for stack, and everything is a little bit more structured. Okay, so what does happen here? So here we are actually displaying here. Just a moment. So here we are actually displaying every item that has a main true, so that we added here, but no item that we added here. And we are displaying simply the topics. And we are displaying them in this way. Okay, so and on delete, like as I said before, when you actually create a new application and integrate CoreData, then there will be a few given functions from Xcode, for example, and it's automatically used that you can actually use on delete. So this modification for list items, which use CoreData items, and this means that you can actually move this here, and if we would actually delete this, then this item wouldn't be deleted. As you can see, we delete this many times, but this doesn't get deleted, but instead we use the topic of this item that we selected and perform this function, delete progress items, that we defined here. And there we take, this is why we directly can take this constant. That's what I said, that item, that's why I said let is basically something like a constant, because if I use it here, let thema will be actually working. So this topic, if I use it here, then this constant will be actually this. So these are basically constants, but depending on where you use it, Xcode can calculate it. So you can't use variables that are not predefined, in Xcode, but you can use let kind of variables. And these things simply have to be able to be calculated at a specific point in time so that Xcode can use and display something with it. So Xcode simply wants to make sure, hey, I have a certain value or whatever, and I can work with this from here on forward. Okay, so we are using this topic as thema, and then we iterate over every item in CoreData, check if the main is false, and if the topic of this item that we are currently iterating through and over equals this, for example, when we go for this here, then we delete this item. So this is how it works, and I believe now we understand how we can actually accomplish with this function that we can delete every past entry we made here for the topic working. I hope this makes sense now. I tried my best. Okay, so now I recommend to you that you copy this code, and you can also see where we started, so you don't get confused. I will let you copy the code from here so you don't mess up the formats and so on. So happy coding. See you in the next video.